they might have nothing to do with one another. The car ramming at Temple Israel in West Bloomfield, Michigan, just outside of Detroit, and a fatal shooting in an ROTC class at Old Dominion University in Virginia. Or, motivationally, they could be connected in ways to evoke fear and met out some sort of vengeance. We do not know yet. As we await confirmation of whatever this was or wasn't, we know this: the events are harrowing, deeply unsettling. Now, I need to let you know this. There's a small possibility of an update from authorities about the synagogue attack during the show. If it occurs, we'll take you there. There is a 5:30 briefing by police about the Old Dominion University shooting. If that happens, we will take you there. So this is very much a fluid situation. I'm joined here at the family table by our Justice Department correspondent, Scott MacFarlane, National Security contributor Samantha Vinograd. All right, Scott, let's take these in sequence. What do we know, starting with, because it happened first, Old Dominion University, and then go to the situation West Bloomfield, Michigan?
Latest report, 1 dead, 2 wounded, and the person who is suspected of this is somebody who was just recently let out of federal prison, a man named Mohammed J-Lo, who, according to the responders on scene and the investigators, is responsible for the Old Dominion shooting. But he was also convicted in 2016 as an alleged ISIL member, suspected of plotting a terror.
Inspired by ISIS.
Inspired by ISIL.
Convicted by that.
And he served roughly, doing the math here on the back of a cocktail napkin, 8 to 8.5 years. There's no parole in the federal system, but maybe he got his release stepped up for good behavior behind bars. He's the man suspected of being in Old Dominion's vicinity on the campus in Norfolk today. And
the Temple Israel Synagogue, West Bloomfield, Michigan.
Oakland County, Michigan, about 45 minutes north and west of Detroit. The sheriff there is Michael Bouchard, who says nobody was injured inside the facility, inside the synagogue. People were evacuated and sheltered in place outside. But the person responsible hasn't been named. We hope to get that in the next briefing. But according to the authorities, that person tried to ram the synagogue, in fact, did ram the synagogue, triggering some form of smoke or fire. It was security or some form of security that returned fire at the person in the vehicle, killing the person responsible.
Sam, my audience will want us to turn to you for some kind of contextualization of that. That is an incredible burden. I don't mean to play it on your shoulders, but how should we think about this?
It's a tough day for our country, Major. And I think these two developments really underscore the diverse nature of threats facing the country and a range of targets, a university and a Jewish institution. I should note, for the synagogue that was targeted, there is early child care, there is preschool, and there's a kindergarten on the premises. So there were very young children present in that synagogue today. What we now know is, as Scott articulated, an individual who was convicted and served time for providing material support to ISIL conducted allegedly this attack at a university. That's one threat stream. ISIS and ISIL inspired and directed attacks in the homeland. And then separately, we don't know the motives about what happened at Temple Israel. That will be investigated. Certainly, there's a lot of talk about individuals inspired or directed by Iran, inspired, directed by ISIS. But the question is, how do we protect our students and our communities? And in both the case of universities and in the case of Jewish institutions and other religious sites, that's a public-private partnership. The U.S. government works closely with partners at the federal, state, and local level. But, for example, at my synagogue, at other synagogues, there's private security that's needed. It's already, and at a certain point, how many more patrol and security officers can you put at a site? There are resource limitations, and that's where we come back to trying to prevent and detect these things before individuals mobilize to violence. That's really hard when you're dealing with what we call lone actors, individuals who act alone or maybe with one other person. And so investigators certainly try to learn lessons from each attack so that it's not just about security on site, very important, but stopping an individual when they're on that radicalization timeline.
Sam, quick reminder to our audience, ISIL, ISIS.
They're the same. They have slightly different territorial aims, but overall are seeking to establish a caliphate, which is a religiously governed or run territory in specific parts of the Middle East and North Africa.
And Sam, we can't, it seems, logically disconnect these two events today from what's happening in Iran. They may not be directly related, but they are certainly within the atmosphere of time.
They are. Although we have an individual who's allegedly inspired by ISIS who conducted an attack in
Austin. And that's not the same thing as Iran. We should make it.
It is. I mean, it is not the same thing. You know, saying someone was inspired by events in a country or by a geopolitical dynamic in today's content environment is very broad. An individual could be watching the news and feel inspired to act, or they could be in chat rooms where there's propaganda being circulated. That is different than a terrorist organization or a nation state saying, go conduct an attack on our behalf.
Scott, I know you well enough to know your body language. You want to jump in? Please jump in.
Tucson, Cleveland, Chicago, Los Angeles, New York, Washington, Detroit, all cities have ratcheted up their protection of Jewish religious facilities in the last few weeks or months amid this military action. Oakland County, Michigan had more protection in place, too, before today, and they've enhanced it around facilities moving after today.
And it's probably certainly the case that this attack could have been a whole lot worse if there wasn't security on site, if they weren't trained, if they didn't have the posture in place to prevent this from being worse. But the question is, how do we prevent these kinds of things from happening well before a vehicle is on the premises of a religious institution?
And Sam, you've been party to these conversations at pretty high levels of the United States government. What's being talked about tonight?
What's being talked about tonight is how to enhance information sharing with partners at all levels of government, how to enhance security posture at all levels of government, and whether we just have the right resources to collect information and intelligence on individuals who are starting to mobilize to violence.
And Scott, do you think any of this will redound to Capitol Hill in terms of more security there or around there? Because that environment itself has been subject to a lot of threats in the last year or two?
We're going to find out soon. Tuesday, the U.S. Capitol Police Chief goes to Congress to ask for his budget for next year. I suspect it's going to be near $1 billion, if not more than $1 billion, and this is only going to raise the stakes.
Scott MacFarlane, Sam Vinograd,
Thanks.
Thank you.